Here we go. So hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar coming to you from Hands-On Diagnostics. And this is a very special webinar we are sponsoring today, as I have with me some very good friends that I will be introducing to you very shortly. But let me, before I start, just give you an idea about who I am and how the concept that we will be talking about tonight came into fruition. So I'm going to share my screen, if you don't mind. Obviously, feel free to type any of your questions and comments either in the chat line or in the question line. All right, so a little bit about me. Again, I'm Dr. Dimitrios Kostopoulos. I am the chairman of the board of Hands-On Diagnostics. I have more than 30 years of clinical experience. Actually, I graduated from physical therapy in 1987. So I'm old school in that regard. I have a master's and a PhD in physical therapy, as well as a doctorate of science in clinical electrophysiology. I also have an MD degree, and I have been board certified for over 25 years now in clinical electrophysiology testing. I'm clinical affiliate assistant professor at FAU School of Medicine. And I have written questions in the past for SAGE, the ABPTS exam for clinical electrophysiology. I'm co-founder of the Hands-On Companies, which is a consortium of companies that span in the realm of diagnostics, physical therapy, education. Now, what I am going to talk to you about is about the letter that changed everything. So give me a quick second so I can describe to you the events of Thanksgiving of 2002. So my business partner, Dr. Rizopoulos, and myself, we opened our very first physical therapy clinic in New York City in 1992. And we did very well, actually, from 1992 until 1998. In a span of 6 years, we created 13 physical therapy clinics, treating an average of 3,000 patient visits per week. And things were very well. I mean, we expanded. We had 147 staff members and a payroll of about $250,000 every 2 weeks. So really very robust organization, very big organization, doing fantastic. So just Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, the office manager walks into the conference room where him and I, my business partner and I, had a meeting, and she puts in front of us a letter and she says, "Read this." So this is a letter that it was not unique to us. This is a letter that all of private practice owners that belonged in Blue Cross Blue Shield in New York, downstate area received. And that letter said that the reimbursement for physical therapy was being slashed down from $140 a visit to $55 a visit. Take it or leave it. And the answer had to be given until before January 1st. If we did not agree with that, January 1st, we were getting off their panel. Initially, we panicked, and then we started strategizing to see how we're going to overcome this. What we did not realize, but only several weeks later, was the fact that this letter was followed by another letter from Aetna Insurance that slashed our rates from $112 per physical therapy visit down to $60 per physical therapy visit, and Oxford United from $88 per visit down to $55 per visit. So this was a phenomenon that trickled down here in New York, downstate, to many insurance carriers where their reimbursement rates were slashed tremendously. I am not going to go through all of the details on how the handlings that we did for that, but I have to tell you that in a case like this, the handling of adding more volume was the wrong handling because we tried it. But when the equation, income minus expenses, at the end of the day is on the red, at the end of the day is a minus, 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 then more of minus, patients that bring you minus, it becomes more minus. You get that, guys? More of minus is minus. You have to get some pluses to overcome the minuses so that the things can end up better. All right. Of course, you see me smiling now because, of course, we are totally in the opposite spectrum and we are doing very, very well. But this ability to do very, very well did not come, in our case, from doing physical therapy. As a matter of fact, out of all of these locations, which most of them we end up selling because they were not making any money to us, and many we consolidated also, out of all of those locations, for years, we end up having one location. So what happened? What did we do that we end up really coming ahead of the game and making good money in our industry? What we did is that we realized, with the help of a consultant we had at that time, that the single component of our business that we had established since 1996, which was the performance of diagnostic testing, meaning at that time just electromyography and evoked potential studies. Later on, we added a lot more testing. That single component of the business was making for us here in New York significant multiples compared to what we were making from PT alone, 3 to 10 times more than what we were making from a single PT visit. So this is when we expanded that business a lot more. And in 2014, we decided to expand our dissemination of that business to other physical therapists around the country. We formed an organization called Hands-On Diagnostics that has as its purpose to actually, here is the purpose, it has as its purpose really to create an autonomous physical therapy practice by advancing the physical therapist as the provider of choice for these testing technologies. And also our purpose to you, our colleagues, is to help you offer these valuable diagnostic services to your community, help thousands of people, and manage to generate significant additional revenues for your businesses. So this is what we did. This is what we end up creating. Okay, so in doing that, we partnered with several people across the country, and I am trying to figure out there. That's what I'm trying to figure out there. We partnered with HUDs, with hands-on diagnostics, with many people around the country. And some of these people that I invited tonight to join me so they can talk to you guys a little bit about their journey, what worked for them, and how right now they envision the future in the post-COVID-19 world. And actually, they are now not just HUD's partners, they are very good friends, and they have realized some great success, not only financially, but also educationally, and with the ability to help people and make a difference in the lives of a lot of people. So they, at least in my screen here, to my left, I don't know what's the configuration in what you guys have, but to my left, I have Bart McDonald. Bart is a very good friend who has several physical therapy and diagnostic testing practices. Bart, what year did we meet? When did you join HUDs?
Well, I want to say that we started about 2015.
Something 2015 or 16, something like that. So Bart is the president and owner of Superior Physical Therapy. And I'll get to interview him with some questions, and he'll give us a lot of information about his practice and what he's doing right now. And also in the bottom of my screen, I have this amazing couple there. That is Angie and Joe, who are the owners of Apex Physical Therapy. And by the way, Superior as well as Apex, they are also winners of previous years' Practice of the Year's awards for hands-on diagnostics. And I'm so happy to have all of those good friends with me tonight. So thank you guys for coming on board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Awesome. So here is my first question, and kind of in these, at this period of time, I'm going to ask you the very relevant question of how things are going with your practice right now with COVID-19, and just a general idea how you guys are doing and how are you dealing with things right now. And then we're going to delve into more questions about, you know, HUDs and why you guys joined and this and that. But just give me a general idea. I'm going to start with you, Bart, there. How are you doing with your practice, and how are you dealing with the COVID right now?
Yeah, thanks, Dimi. We started out at about 15% of our normal volume within just a couple of weeks after COVID hit Idaho, and went to a telehealth platform, scrambled to get PPE, and then gradually brought patients as appropriate back into our office with appropriate PPE, and it was tough. But things are looking up, really. We are closer to between 75 and 80% of normal volume at this point. We're seeing an uptick, and we still have a lot of patients that have their concerns about being seen or going in public at all, I guess. And some of those concerns are very valid, but we're taking precautions, and we're seeing some growth, and we're excited that that's occurring.
Awesome. Thank you. And how about you guys, Angie and Joe?
So we had a similar situation to Bart in that one of the biggest mitigating strategies that we used was telehealth. And just not only telehealth, but we had our staff just really all hands on deck doing patient outreach, you know, calling and checking up and just staying engaged with our community and making sure that they were doing okay. We're about 80% back to capacity right now. Which is great. We're down in Florida, so it makes it a little bit easier. We were able to treat some patients outside even throughout this pandemic. You know, things are definitely going in a good direction right now.
Awesome. Very good. Very well done, guys. And I'm going to say for us in New York, in terms of our PT practice, I'm very happy to report that despite the fact that we are essentially ground zero, and things here in New York are opening very slowly. We did about 57% last week, and we are projecting to be at about 65% of our pre-COVID numbers this coming week. We are projecting to be at the 80% margin by the end of this month. So look, the things are looking up for us too. And we are way ahead compared to some of our competition. So we're very happy with that. So let me go back to you, Bart, and ask you, at some point in time, you decided to join HUDs, to join Hands-On Diagnostics Franchising. Why did you decide to join HUDs? What were you trying to solve, or what were you trying to achieve before you decide to join HUDs?
You know, Dimi, I think we've had some vague parts of our profession without diagnostics that probably all physical therapy practitioners have run into over the years. One of the biggest things that we were trying to solve is that conundrum when, whether it be a back patient that the surgeon has already said, hey, look, I need to do back surgery on you, but the insurance company won't allow me to do this surgery until you failed at physical therapy. So we're going to go ahead and send you for 6 weeks of predicted failed physical therapy so the therapist can say that it didn't work so that I can do surgery. Or the same type of situation that we run into from time to time as therapists, where we get a shoulder patient that comes in and the doctor says it's shoulder pain is our diagnosis. And so we kind of start treating in the dark, hoping that we can get that patient better. And sometimes with our orthopedic tests, we hone in on the structure that may or may not be totally injured there, but we don't have a degree of diagnostic clarity before we get to an MRI to give us the direction of how to treat that most effectively and how to get our best outcomes. So I think between those two things as a practice, we got together and started to say, what else is out there to expand our physical therapy base of knowledge so that we can do the best for our individual patients day after day, giving them the best healthcare at really a more cost-effective rate. And so that's some of the things that brought us to HODS and trying to answer those questions.
Yeah, and oops, before I get to Joe and Angie, just talk to us a little bit about the traditional model of physical therapy versus the model of physical therapy that includes the diagnostic testing.
You bet, Dimi. And this is something that, boy, we've been so pleased in our practices to see a change in, because typically somebody comes in for physical therapy and we really do evaluate in our best ability or orthopedic plan there, create with that treatment plan. We intervene and we just kind of reevaluate and adjust that plan, do some more PT, to that either we reach the goals or we hit this barrier where the patient didn't achieve those goals, didn't achieve what we set out to do. They're frustrated, we're frustrated, and frankly, without more expensive diagnostics in maybe MRI or some of those types of things, we've had a negative experience with that patient, and really, in some of those cases, didn't help them the way that we intended from the beginning. Now, of course, in that traditional model, a lot of our patients still do get better, but there are those harder patients that we didn't know from the get-go, so we treated to our best of our ability. With diagnostics, it changes the whole game plan. Instead of really starting out with only the PT evaluation, day 1, day 2, we're doing diagnostic testing, whether that be EMG or musculoskeletal ultrasound. And then we develop a treatment plan, and that really is based on more objective data. And as we then go through that treatment plan, we even adjust it based on what we found on during that diagnostic testing, go perhaps a different direction. And at the end of the day, we find that our outcomes are much, much better. Often we do a test retest, a lot of times with musculoskeletal ultrasound, to be able to show the patient and the physician that the treatment intervention that we're following at 4 to 6 weeks into the care really is making the difference that the patient is also feeling when they tell us that their pain is reduced from 8 out of 10 to 4 out of 10 in that scale.
Awesome. That brings me actually to add the fact that there is evidence on this, which we identified in a study that we recently published at the Journal of Bodywork and Movement Therapies, that showed that 62% of the patients that received an EMG test, they had a change in the patient management because of the results that we identified in the electrodiagnostic studies. So thank you, Bart. Angie and Joe, you came into HUDS a little later, a couple of years later. What's the story behind it? What's the motivating factor that helped you get into HUDS? Help you decide?
Well, I'm going to start because she can elaborate on it. We came into HUDS in 2017. The one thing I can say off of what Bart said, we have a little different kind of approach. Like, our approach has been more marketing to the community. And so we feel like physical therapy can be the entry point to the healthcare system rather than having a physician be the entry to the healthcare system if you have an injury or breakdown musculoskeletally. So this was a great platform for us to bring into our, practice in that. So I feel like that's what really got us going. And, like I said, she can elaborate more, but I feel like that's what got us into it.
Yeah, 2017, we came into the program, actually, we were, it was after Hurricane Irma when our practice took quite a blow, and, things were crazy. And we re-looked at kind of our vision as to how we were going to forge ahead. And one of the things we looked back to was Vision 2020 and the autonomous practitioner, as well as our direct to community marketing. So, it was at that point that we said, well, if that's what we're going to do, we better be able to diagnose these people very, very well. And if we're that entry point, be very accurate in what we're treating and how we're treating it, and or be able to make a solid referral to our orthopedic friends or neurology friends or whomever, that might be. So that was really our vision and our purpose on coming into HUDS.
Thank you. I want to ask you guys, I'm asking you first, Joe, actually, because from the couple of you, Joe has been more the clinical guy, and Angie has been more the business guy, meaning Angie has been the boss, and Joe has been the guy who works. Okay, so I want to ask you, give us a little bit about your educational experience, and then give us an actual patient example that shows the difference that diagnostics made in your patient treatment, essentially, and patient management.
Absolutely. And and being in the program, I can see there's different entry points. So we have some people that come into the program that are fresh out of school. You know, that's an advantage as far as like when you're talking like the actual anatomy, you know, and all that. Where for me, I have all the the patient experience. So that part was easy for me, but then I had to relearn back to neuroanatomy and all that. I feel like there's no really advantage in any point, so you can come in at any level. It's funny though, going back to what you just said as far as an example, because I'm still working on some of our new hires who are not generating the referrals, and as far as our internal referrals, patients who should be tested and they're not. And one patient that really sticks out for me is a patient that we had a doctor of physical therapy, fresh out of school, did an amazing evaluation. I did the actual review on the patient. So the patient was referred for a rotator cuff tear. MRI showed positive for rotator cuff tear. Evaluation was done, and all of the evals showed actually rotator cuff. Everything led to that. Patient was seen for 6 weeks, no improvement. Range of motion hardly improved, no improvement in strength. We were actually new earlier into the HODS program at that time, so we said let's go ahead and do an EMG and let's see what we got. And actually did the EMG and found out and MSK. MSK did confirm there's a rotator cuff tear, but it was minimal to moderate. But the EMG actually showed a moderate to severe C5, C6 axonal injury. And at that point, we're like, whoa, this has been, and then going back, the patient never had neck pain. Patient nothing showed anything related to the neck. But now we knew something. So we started treating that, and that patient, I mean, his improvement was through the roof then from the next, month after that. But actually, all of us were kind of blown away at that point, knowing that, holy cow, like, because we were going by, the doctor first, which we always, hey, the doctor must know. The MRI confirmed it. Yeah, it was shown. We did an MSKUS, it showed it.
Special tests.
They're all, positive for.
Clinically looked like a rotator cuff, yeah.
And then boom. And sure enough, he went to see a neurologist or neurosurgeon. Neurosurgeon said, actually, it was self-fused at that level. Couldn't even do anything, but we were able to at least address it at that level, and he showed, moderate, improvement from that point. So.
And this is amazing because actually then you can create a treatment plan that is really customized to that patient and addresses this issue. And this brings me really to this slide that I keep showing again and again and again. Yes, you are going to have a patient where you may want to rule out a cervical radiculopathy with the number one, the mostly used orthopedic test for cervical radic, which is your Sperling's test, which has a sensitivity of 30%, for God's sakes. This means it's missing 70% of the patients who have a cervical radic. And then you go to, of course, the sensitivity of an EMG, which is 71% or more, actually, in some studies after 1999, that can have by doing just an EMG, and then you can really know exactly what you are doing. So that's awesome. Bart, I want to ask you same question. Give us an actual patient example where the fact that you performed a diagnostic test on a patient really created a difference. It made a difference on how you manage the patient.
You bet. Yeah, probably the one that comes to mind is one from just last week. I had a 40-year-old male that came in. He's a bodybuilder. He also is he does firefighter. And he came in complaining of mild neck pain, moderate to severe anterior lateral shoulder pain with some weakness, and then numbness and tingling and paresthesias in both hands. I'll tell you, prior to doing hands-on diagnostics, I would have been like, oh my goodness, this guy is a train wreck. Where do we start, right? So I went ahead, and before starting PT, it just made sense. Let's find out if some of this is coming out of his neck. Let's find out what's going on. And so we did EMG and also ultrasound of the shoulder. Found out he has a partial thickness rotator cuff tear and supraspinatus and tendinopathy of the long-headed biceps. Does that make sense for most of our bodybuilders there, Joe? You probably yeah. He also had, of course, this numbness and tingling in his hands, predominantly in his first, second, third part of his fourth digit, right? And had moderate carpal tunnel problems on the left, but severe on the right. And from our practice standards through the APTA, there's a little bit of a line in there for me when I'm treating. When I get somebody that on an EMG has moderate, I'm going to try to treat that patient because I have fair amount of success with that. Exactly. But once I get into a severe or very severe category, especially with that right hand, the axonopathy that's occurring there, as well as the demyelination and combination, we have a situation that surgery may be more beneficial for that patient. And so we started to talk to a hand surgeon about that. But from a physical therapy standpoint, we said we can take care of the partial thickness rotator cuff tear of the supraspinatus. We can take care of this tendinopathy of the long head of the biceps, and we started care. And we even started care at the wrist, especially on the left, and are just right now consulting with a hand surgeon as to whether they think that physical therapy care is the best move there on the right. But therein lies a little bit more of a differential diagnosis and a plan of care route because of diagnostics that I would never entertain. I would have never had. As a physical therapist, without knowing a grading system for carpal tunnel, or at that point, not even knowing if this was truly at the wrist, perhaps based on some of those sensitivities, specificities for Tunnels versus Sperling, I may have been treating the neck. Well, he has a little mechanical neck pain, but he doesn't have any radiculopathy. And so it would have been really a little more of a crapshoot just to say, where do we start? I mean, you started with some frustration when I'm painting this picture without diagnostics as a PT, and now we just honed in, knew exactly what we needed to treat for the best optimum success for the patient.
And I've heard you on a past presentation stating something about what you are what you are not going to do on a shoulder patient. You keep saying that, so say that one more time.
Well, I'll tell you, I and a lot of our therapists now within our organization, once you do enough musculoskeletal ultrasound evaluations and combined with your orthopedic evaluation of a shoulder, I will never treat a shoulder again without doing an ultrasound. I'll never do that. Before that, partial thickness tear versus tendinopathy versus just an inflammatory process or strain versus full thickness tear. I'll tell you what, there is a wealth of knowledge that comes through that transducer head, through that ultrasound. They can't achieve in any other way unless you are willing to do a $3,000 on MRI on every single patient that walks through your door, which is a disservice to them. Ultrasound is where it's at. I'll never treat another shoulder again without doing an ultrasound, period.
Thank you.
Hey, Demi, real quick. One thing too, like as Bart is talking about, is we're missing the patient buy-in. So a lot of therapists across the country have trouble with patient compliance to visits, this and that. When we can diagnose this from the get-go and actually they start seeing the improvement right away, the patient buy-in is huge. And that's what we've seen, and that's not something that's hard to, kind of relate to this, but we've definitely seen it in our practice.
I think if I can interrupt, Joe is completely right. One of the things that we started to try to track was what is the consistency with just percent arrival with the patients that have a post-operative condition. They're very, very high. We find that they are 90+%. Now, with other patients that we're trying to save them from surgery, sometimes they're quite a bit less. But when we interject and put diagnostics in and can show them their problem, they get a lot closer to that post-operative scenario because just like Joe said, their buy-in goes way up. They can see their problem. They can see the progress through diagnostics. They understand it far better and their compliance just shoots the roof.
Yep.
Actually, in the study that I was sharing before, part of the study included patient perception about diagnostics, and 98% of those patients they felt that they were able to manage better their condition and participate in the management of their condition because of the kind of results that they saw from diagnostics. I mean, let's don't kid ourselves. It's very powerful when in your treatment room or eval room, you have a big screen TV and you have the patient in front of you and you evaluate their shoulder or their elbow, and you throw on the screen the ultrasound images, and the patient moves the shoulder in a specific way, and they can see the movement, and they can see the tear, they can see the inflammation, and you explain to them about this. That is so powerful. So look, it is undisputable that the elevation of the physical therapy practice when they put in diagnostics in the practice, electromyography, musculoskeletal ultrasound, and the rest, that elevates tremendously the practice and it elevates the quality of the physical therapists who practice in that practice, the clinical quality and clinical ability of these therapists. But at the end of the day, things have to do also with numbers. And for us, I'll share this with you. It is important to understand that there are studies out there. There are studies that show that reimbursement rates for physical therapy, they are in a slide. They will be decreasing at least until the next 2 years. That is what is indicated. And what ends up happening is that physical therapists settle for very low profit margins. The study of the peer-to-peer group of the private practice section of the APTA last year indicated that nationwide profit margin for PT was around 12%, in some cases even less. How are we as a profession will be able to withstand an 8% reduction on Medicare, which still is supposed to happen, or a potential 15% reduction from Medicare for if physical therapy services are provided under physical therapy assistance? So diagnostic testing does provide a higher reimbursement for the insurances that pay for diagnostic testing. They provide a significantly higher multiple compared to a single physical therapy visit. So I just want to get an idea from you, Bart, first. What is some of the financial impact that diagnostics have made in your practice?
Yeah, you bet. So in Idaho, our reimbursement for physical therapy is still moderate. It's not what it used to be, but we have seen some decreases in that. When we started to introduce diagnostics into our practice, we found that it became a revenue stream that was independent of physical therapy reimbursements and became almost, the way I see it, almost a separate business or a practice within a practice without the brick and mortar overhead that we normally have in opening a new location. And so essentially each of our 4 locations has an additional practice inside of that practice. It's quite a good revenue builder. As we entered into that, it became really apparent that there was no way we could step away from what it did financially for our practice. And you can see some numbers here for Superior PT. Our revenue per visit before HODS and PT only, 104. Revenue per visit with HODS jumped up to 137. And so, we see a 31.7% increase. And over 12 months, it's very, very dramatic on what that can do for a physical therapy practice. On top of that, what we've done is tried to reinvest some of that revenue back towards our therapists that are learning and growing, and tried to give them some incentives so that they feel like they're very, really they're being incentivized, yes, but they're being really promoted within our practice for the extra time and effort that it takes to be the very best physical therapist in the country by being a part of Diagnostics.
So I'll get back to the staff effects and how you incentivize people, but I'm gonna ask you guys, Angie and Joe, in your practice, what are some of the financial effects from diagnostics for those insurance carriers that reimburse for diagnostic testing in your area, in your state?
Yeah, so as Demi has pulled up there, our numbers are kind of seen on the bottom of that grid. Approximately 30% increase in our per visit. I can say that, you know, last year you talked about the overall kind of the net profit that practices are looking at. Very pleased to say that last year our profit margin was 29%. So, I mean, that's unheard of compared to what the PPS numbers are showing.
That's very good. Especially, think about this. Let's take the example of a physical therapy practice, and even a solo practitioner, a single guy, let's say, PT, or maybe a PT with a PTA or something like that, some sort of combination, where in many cases, they are at a profit margin, let's say, of 8 to 10%, and that is pretty much the salary that that therapist is taking at home. An 8% reduction or another 15% reduction on that, what are the effects on that practice? How much money that person will end up taking at home at the end of the day? It can have really significant negative financial implications. So diagnostic testing can, amongst all the other benefits, it can offer financial viability to a physical therapy practice. But I want to ask you guys, I'm gonna start with you, Joe and Angie. At this point, you have established, you have trained several of your staff, and you very soon will be board certified in clinical electrodiagnosis. But tell me a little bit about your plans for expansion utilizing diagnostics. What do you think will be your phase 2, your next plan on expanding diagnosis and utilizing both in-house and outside business models to further expand the practice?
Yeah, so our goals for 2020, and you know, despite COVID and all the things we have going on, you know, we're moving forwards. Our goal was to have at least 3 providers fully doing EMG and MSK services within our, you know, brick and mortar within our clinic. That's expanding from just Joe doing it alone. So, you know, that's 3 times the providers. And then additionally, we are working on our outside, as Demi had mentioned there, some of our outside work. And our goal is to have 2 of those set up by the end of this year. And Joe, you can go into a little bit more detail on what that entails.
Yeah, so our outside referral, and I have our outside business, actually, we have some really good reception in the community. It's just a matter of putting together all the little pieces of it, but I have between orthopedics and podiatry groups that are very well receptive and want to bring this into their practice. Actually, talking with them, it's another added revenue stream for them. It's another bucket for them kind of like we want to bring in more buckets. So you never just want to have just one bucket of just physical therapy. We have physical therapy, we have diagnostics. For us, we have athletic performance. For them, you know, if they have just podiatry, now they can bring in, you know, this added bucket. So we actually can do that. And what it's actually done, even just for me to start communicating, it's already bringing in, you know, referrals, not just for diagnostic, but it's also bringing in more referrals for PT. So just bringing that little, you know, communication piece in is already, you know, bringing up. I can't even imagine once we get to, you know, actually, you know, get them as official signed in contracts. So it's very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you. And Bart, I'm going to ask you the same question. How are you planning to expand your business with the use of diagnostics in the months to come, both as an in-house and as an outside business?
You bet. So we kind of have a similar plan in that we want to have at each of our 4 clinics at least 2 providers that are competent in ultrasound. I think that's really critical, especially because doing outpatient orthopedics, there's nothing that complements that practice better on a normal everyday basis than musculoskeletal ultrasound. And then by August, we hope to have our second EMG provider started with our practice. We have an individual that has had some background in EMG as a PT, some exposure that way, and sought us out and has been trying to get a job with us because of that aspect of our practice. And so we're hoping to have all our ducks in a row to be able to bring him in and start that process through HOTS. We also, our patient care coordinator has started a campaign where we just have some letters that we're starting with some physicians to be able to do some things with podiatry as well as orthopedists. And our hope is to be able to expand that in-house practice in with physicians, out of house for us, obviously, but in their offices to the point in which we can reach out to some of our smaller communities, start with diagnostics there, and then of course grow it to a PT practice because it's established those relationships for referral that is really the groundwork that's necessary to start another practice and help our PT practices grow.
Thank you. For a business owner, for the owner of the physical therapy practice, what is the effect to their staff in terms of career development, acquisition of staff, and retention of staff to include in the practice HUDs and diagnostic testing?
If I can answer that first, one of the things that we found is that the PTs that get most excited about joining our practice, or once they've been in our practice, getting involved in hands-on diagnostics and really implementing that into their day-to-day patient care, boy, they know they can't necessarily find that at every practice across the United States. So we're very unique and we really stand out. And so from a retention standpoint, as well as a recruiting standpoint that I just alluded to, people start seeking us out that are interested in this level of therapy practice within the United States. And then once they attain it, to be able to step out to a different practice and maybe go practice for one of my competitors or whatever, really is not super exciting to a lot of them because they have to leave diagnostics behind. It's not supported in all those other practice venues. So it really helps quite a bit in building the PT practice as a company.
Thank you. How about you guys, Joe and Angie? What is the effect of incorporating diagnostics and how you have used it in terms of recruitment and then just retention of staff?
Very, very similar to what Bart mentioned there. What we've really seen is, we know that our PTs that are, especially in that 1 to 5 years out of school, their biggest drive is wanting to learn and be mentored as much as possible. So, that us being able to say, you can come on board with us and we're going to be able to provide you a level of mentorship in board certification, in residency, in all of these just elite level opportunities. I think that's, as Bart said, it just really makes us differentiate ourselves from the rest of the market and the rest of the, the other private practices, or even, the larger corporate groups that we have around here. So that's really what we've noticed. We do have a new graduate PT that's on board with us right now. And, he's been very transparent in the sense that that's been one of the biggest reasons why he came on board with us, is because he wants to go through the EMG certification, and that he's very, very interested in that. He just was in my office the other day, like, when are we going to get back to this EMG study stuff? I'm like, dude, it's New York. What do you want me to do? I'm like, we're working on it. So, yeah.
Another thing too, though, that's really, I've seen it because I answer all of our emails that come through the businesses. This has been the most by far requests for students to come on board and do like interns with us, and it's huge because people don't realize, like, these are people, like, they come in and they see you firsthand, but then these could be the ones that you're hiring, and you get these fresh new hires in the future. And I've never ever seen so many. And we've had people like saying, hey, we heard you're doing this. We want to send you, some interns or some, students do residencies with you. So it's very cool in that aspect too. So.
Thank you. That's awesome. Look, guys, I'm going to start with Bart on this, and same with Joe and Angie then. You guys are member of this franchise, of Hands-On Diagnostics franchise, okay? You got your educational part, you got all of the other supportive services that the franchise provides to you, and you are part of a community of professionals, physical therapy professionals, where we are really trying to change here the physical therapy profession. What has been your experience and the support you have received from all of us, the administration of the franchise? Just speak to that.
This has really been a phenomenal educational experience for, I think, all of our practitioners that have gone through HODS. One of the things that I think is absolutely critical when PTs take a step towards diagnostics and improving our profession is that the level of mentorship support has to be at just the highest level. Otherwise, we could step out there and provide some diagnostic reports that would be subpar, sub-level. Can't do that. And that's the thing that HODS always supports at the highest level, is that I've got a mentor that's going to go through each of this in the learning stages throughout the residency program. That's going to help me to never put out a bad product 100% of the time. Even if there's been times where I get a mentor that I'm going through something, and Joe, you may have had this too, where they, Bart, what were you thinking? You didn't take this through all the steps here. I need you to pull that patient back in and redo something here, because we don't make a bad product. And that's okay. You eat a little humble pie in the learning process, that's all right. But what's really critical is that HODS, both from an administrative process and from its mentorship, just has just a grade A educational process that I haven't found anywhere else.
Thank you. And how about you guys?
I can talk on the mentorship, and Angie can talk on the administrative. I agree completely with Bart. I mean, on mentorship level, you are going to get, like, they're going to reinforce what you're doing good, but they're also going to tell you what you need to improve on. They're going to break you down a little bit just to say, like, but again, it's because this is the future. This is what we're trying to bring to however many, therapists that aren't doing this in the future, we're bringing something new in. So this first line of us coming through need to be like spot on. So, again, reinforcing the good, but also going to, tell you when you're not doing something right. So I agree.
Awesome.
Yeah. So like from the whole team in general, I've even had, a lot of connections with the mentors, the clinical mentors as well. It's just, it is a family. And that's what I think makes this whole thing work as well as it does, because, you know, as Bart can attest to, as well as all of our partners, we're all in this to be a mom and pop family oriented business at the end of the day, right? Like that's how we do business. And that's the same way that HODS does business with us. As you guys all can imagine, Dimmy is a very, very, very busy man. Very busy man. But anytime that I need him, I text him. He always responds. He always replies, and he always has our back. Whether I'm complaining to him about something, or I just need extra help with something, he's always there. And that speaks volumes, because any of you that know Dimmy and everything that he does, he's there to serve everybody, and it's just, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And you know what? And it's not just at you, Demi. It's what you kind of lead and everybody below you. Because again, on the mentorship level, I mean, I can text John Lugo and I can text Mohini, and she's gonna get right back to me. And I've texted them early in the morning. I've texted them late in the night. I've been in the middle of a test, and I've texted them, and they're right on it. So they truly do care. 100% about, they're not, oh, who's this again? No, they're on it. They're, so your leadership though, goes all the way down, with everybody. So we appreciate that.
Thank you guys. And you're absolutely awesome. And I'm very grateful to have you guys in our team. This type of response and the kind of people that you are, and the change that you are creating for the PT profession, this gives us motivation to really keep going and keep doing things that others sometimes do not dare to do, or they're not willing to do. So this gives me actually the opportunity tonight in this event to make an announcement which you guys don't even know, heard of this yet. So tonight I am announcing that on October 3rd and 4th, HODS is sponsoring the 2020 Virtual International Conference in Electromyography and MSK Ultrasound. This will be an unbelievable event where for 2 days we will have the authorities around the world in the field of electromyography and MSK ultrasound, along with many of our HODS members and students who will be making presentations and collaborating in a lot of projects, including the collaboration of many physicians with physical therapists in the areas of electromyography and MSK ultrasound. And as you can see here, there is not even information to register or anything, because this is just right off the press right now. I'm just making the announcement, and more information will be coming very, very soon. So a few last words from each of you. Bart, you go first.
Yeah, I just want to say, really, this is the step that we took several years ago to step into diagnostics for our PT practice is something that we did both for, financial reasons, for business reasons, sure, but for the outcomes for our patients. We wanted to be able to elevate our PT practice, and it really does. It's real. And when we talk about treating blind, every once in a while I'll do a chart review and look at somebody in the practice who perhaps didn't utilize some diagnostics, and they didn't therefore hit the nail on the head for how they could treat that patient in the most cost-effective and beneficial way to reach their goals. And we always kind of have this little logo that floats around with, hey, don't treat your patients blind. And so my message really from now until the time that I retire is probably going to be, don't treat blind. As PT professional, we can't treat blindly anymore. We should be able to do testing that is within our scope, and this is, and to be able to understand the true pathology of the patient, guide our practice and really guide the outcomes for the patient. And then do test retest to be able to show both the patient, physician, and insurance companies that we are valuable medical practitioners, that we don't want less reimbursement. We actually deserve more. Outside of diagnostics, PT is the best practice. And really, I love it. I could never step back. My wife always says that whether I was paid or not, this is my hobby as well. There might be some truth to that. But if we step back and let reimbursement just slide by and don't make a difference for our practices, we could be in that position of 8% or less in a profit margin. At that point, it really just is a hobby. It really isn't a profession anymore. It really isn't a job. There really isn't a practice or a business. We can't let that happen. Diagnostics has been a huge stepping stone for us. And we really hope that every single PT practice in America will join us.
Thank you, Bart. How about you guys, Joe and Angie?
I mean, he nailed it on the head. I mean, the only thing I can add to that is patient outcomes. Like this day and age, like we don't have control over reimbursements. We don't have control over co-pays, co-insurances, deductibles. Those are going to go up no matter what. And if we can like be laser focused from the beginning and get these patients better quicker, then that's what it's all about. And we can do this with diagnostics.
I think just my biggest takeaway is just, as Bart said, like we look to a day that as pioneers in this, we look to a day that this is mainstream physical therapy, that this is what an outpatient physical therapy practice looks like. And it makes sense from, I always look at the three-legged stool when I make decisions. Does it make sense? Is it in the best interest of our patients? Is it in the best interest of our staff and our team? And is it in the best interest of the business? And it's all three yeses. So, it's a no-brainer.
Thank you, guys. You are all so awesome. And actually, Angie, you said the word. You said the word pioneers, and you guys are pioneers. We are all pioneers. And those of you who are watching this, realize that it's time for diagnostics in physical therapy. And if you guys want to join us, to join our movement, go to www. I'll get it, don't worry. There you go. www.hadsmeeting.com and book a meeting with us, book a discovery call, so we can help you to implement this in your facility. And before I close, and yes, I have thanked all of you guys that you joined tonight, and Bart, Angie, and Joe, thank you so much for being who you are and doing what you are doing. I am going to close with I hope this little inspirational message for all of you. Here we go.
Because you're a physical therapist, you're not afraid to face pain. Where many see obstacles, you see opportunities. Because you're a physical therapist, you're always looking for solutions to your patient's pain, dysfunction, or disability. Looking at the surface of a problem will never be good enough for you.
Oops. Too bad. Sorry, I messed it up. So I'll have to redo it, and let me do it again. Sorry. Here we go.
Because you're a physical therapist, you're not afraid to face pain. Where many see obstacles, you see opportunities. Because you're a physical therapist, you're always looking for solutions to your patient's pain, dysfunction, or disability. Looking at the surface of a problem will never be good enough for you. You're poised to tackle your patient's problems using every molecule of your body and every modern tool available to heal. Because you're a physical therapist, you're a scientist and a pioneer. You are willing to step beyond the crowd and lead the way. You dare to dream the future of the profession. A future where advanced diagnostic technologies of ultrasound imaging and electromyography are at your fingertips. Hands-on diagnostics helps you see your patient's pain. Together, we can create your future of physical therapy now. It's time for diagnostics in physical therapy. Seeing is believing. Join the movement now.
All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you all for joining us, and Have a great evening and keep moving forward. Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
Steve.
Bart.
Bye, Bart.
Dimmy.
Bye,
See
Dimmy.
you, Joe. See
Take
ya.
care.